Okay, welcome back to week 3 of the 4-week Confidence Currency Intensive. This is lesson 3, and this lesson is going to be one that is just jam-packed full of information. It's going to be probably the longest lesson of this entire intensive, so make sure that you have lots of time and lots of energy left to ingest everything that I'm going to be saying. Please make sure that you have printed out your course materials because you're going to use them a lot. Now, today we are going to talk about nutrition. Obviously, nutrition is an important component in a health journey or in a weight loss journey. And actually, if I had to choose what's more important, nutrition or fitness, although I think they really need to work in tandem, nutrition is going to be primary in terms of importance because you can do more damage with your nutrition in a day than you really could. It would take you an entire week fitness-wise to get yourself to reverse that damage, right? We can just eat so many calories, do so much damage in like an hour, whereas it would take us hours or days to work that off fitness-wise. So nutrition is super, super important. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Now, let me just start out by saying I am not a nutritionist. I am not a registered dietitian. So if you have specific health problems that require you to really, pay attention to specific things when it comes to your nutrition, then please, please, please consult your doctor. Now, here's who I am. I am a real life person that's just living a normal, regular life like many of you, right? I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a business owner, I'm a homeschooler. So I'm just a normal person. But I'm also a normal person who lost 200 pounds the natural way, and I've been able to maintain a healthy weight over the past 10 years. So while I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, what I can speak to is how can you eat in a way that supports weight loss, and how can you do it in a sustainable way that's going to let you keep on reaching your goals and keep out living in freedom for years and years to come. That's what I have done in my own life, and that's what I can speak to you to today. Now, let me tell you that the nutritional advice that I'm going to give you today is going to look very different than what you might read in a health magazine or see somewhere else online. And the reason why it's going to seem pretty different is because what I'm going to tell you isn't going to induce fear in you. It's not going to induce shame in you. And because it's not going to push those two buttons in your life, it's not going to force you to spend a lot of money, right? What I'm going to tell you just doesn't sell. It doesn't sell because it just makes too much sense and it's not manipulating you with your emotions. What I'm going to tell you is just based on facts. And so it's going to sound a lot different than maybe anything else you've ever heard before. And that's not to say that that shouldn't point out like, oh man, I don't know, this isn't jiving with everything else I've heard. It should actually, make a little red light ding off in terms of, oh, this must be true because nothing else that I've tried has really worked before or been sustainable. So the very first thing that we need to talk about is what is important to you when it comes to your nutrition. Okay, I don't believe that there is a one size fits all, diet or nutrition plan because every single person is different. What's important to you when it comes to your food isn't probably what's important to me or the next person or the next person, right? So you need to think about what's important to you. If I'm answering that question, when I'm thinking about nutrition, for me, what's important is that my nutrition is something that's very easy. Honestly, I don't have a lot of time to think about, what I'm going to eat or creating these huge meals. For me, I don't really care if my food is fancy. I don't care, about cooking these beautiful meals. I don't even really care about eating different things that often. I can eat pretty repetitively. For me, what's most important is that it doesn't take me a lot of time, that it doesn't take me, a great deal of mental effort, and that I can just do it quickly. I can eat the same things pretty frequently. I need it to not be super expensive, and I need to have it easily on hand. That's what's important to me. Now, that's not necessarily what's important to someone else. Someone else might say, it's important to me that the foods that I eat, don't have any preservatives or food dyes, or it's important to me that, there's a lot of like fresh vegetables, or it's important to me that it not be having any sort of meat-based products or dairy-based products. That's not where I'm at. That's where someone else is at, and that's okay. I think it's important that you know and are okay with what's important to you, because if it's important to you, then you're more likely to stick through it with something. And you just have to be realistic with who you are and where you're at in life. If you're like me and you just need something quick and you're not a super, interested in cooking and stuff like that, to try to follow some sort of diet plan that says you've got to get all these crazy ingredients you've never heard of and spend, hours in the kitchen and all of this time in meal prep and all that, that's just not realistic. And it's only a matter of time before you don't follow through. So it's important that you know what is valuable to you, because there really is no one right way to lose weight. The truth is, this is why all diets actually work. Any diet that you've ever tried, it's probably worked in some way, shape, or form for a period of time, because all diets, whether they want to tell you or not, are all based on the principle of reducing your calorie intake, right? Even though they may call it, oh, don't eat this food or don't eat that food, the reality is you're reducing your caloric intake. And so when you do that, you are going to lose weight, right? That's why all diets work, but all diets are not sustainable, and not all diets will work for all people, because all people are different. And most diets, not most diets, almost all diets, right, are trying to kind of give you this feeling of, I have got to reduce, and specify so much what I'm eating that it's just not realistic for real life. And it's only a matter of time before you're frustrated, disappointed, and just totally throwing in the towel. Right? So you've got to know what is important to you. So there's a portion of your personal health plan where you can really think and identify what is important to you in terms of how much time it takes you to cook something, the taste of it. For me, it's really important that I like what I eat. I don't like raw carrots and celery, so I'm not going to force myself to eat those. And if that is part of some plan that I'm supposed to eat, I know I'm not going to follow it. So what is important to you in terms of nutrition? Really take time and think of that and come to terms with that, because that's okay. Some people would be absolutely appalled that I lost, the majority of my 200 pounds, still drinking Coke Zero, still eating lean cuisines, right? I didn't have to forego all preservatives and all fake sugar and all of that, because those things just aren't important to me. And so if you have ever had in your mind that only this type of diet is what works, it's just not true. Now, let's go ahead and you might be thinking, well, wow, that sounds like there's a lot of flexibility here, right? It can't really be true. I want you to, give me the rules here, Tiffany. I want you to give me the secret. It can't really just be based on what's important to me and I'll just follow that. Here's the secret. Are you ready? The secret is facts. The secret is that you must eat less calories, okay? You must ingest less calories than you burn in a day. Or meaning you need to burn more calories than you eat in a day. There needs to be a calorie deficit. So for example, if you're burning 2,000 calories in a day, but you're eating 4,000 calories in a day, right? That's not a deficit. So you need to create a deficit. And if you do that, you will lose weight. Now, maybe you're thinking like, wait. That's like the oldest diet in the book, right? That's the oldest diet in the book, to like count calories and then just move your body. Like, no, there must be something else. No, there's really not. It really is that simple. There's a reason why it has been around for so long. It's the reason why it's kind of the original diet, and why people are still saying it, me included, someone who's lost 200 pounds and kept it off, is that because it's facts, right? You need to take in less calories than you're burning. And if you do that, you will lose weight. Now, it is simple. It's as simple as I just said it to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy, right? Doing any sort of life adjustment or adopting a new habit, such as tracking your calories and things that we're going to think about today and talk about today, they are simple, but they are not easy. It is actually pretty difficult to adjust your lifestyle to accommodate doing something like this. So it will take time, and we're going to talk about different tools and tricks right now that have worked for me and that have been, implementable, and you're going to be able to do it. But just because it's simple doesn't necessarily make it easy. But I promise you that it really is that simple. And anytime that I have tried to go, because I've tried, other diets in the past, for example, after I lost 2 babies back, after I gave birth to 2 babies back to back, I had about, 40 to 50 pounds to lose. And I was so tempted, and I gave into the temptation for a little bit to say, you know what, like I've heard, good things about different low carb diets. And I really I want to get this weight off quickly. And so maybe I'm not going to do the things that I have always done that have always worked. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this, low carb or no carb thing. And I'm going to get this weight off quick because I've heard all these success stories of people that have lost it quick. And that way I just don't have to trudge it out, count my calories and all of that. Can I tell you what happened? I was so, strict on the plan, and I limited the carbs so much, right? And I was 8 or 10 weeks in. I was even doing a challenge with some friends, and I was baffled because I was like, I've gotten rid of all carbs in my life. How is it possible that I am still not losing weight? What is wrong with me? And my friend suggested, she said, well, why don't you just for one day, track your calories and see how many calories you're taking in, which I had not been doing because the, guise under low carb, no carb eating is that if you are tracking your carbs, that you don't need to, worry about monitoring your calories or anything like that. So I said, okay, I'm not losing any weight in 8 weeks. Let me go ahead and give this thing a try. And so I kept eating the same way, low carb, no carb, but started tracking the calories that I was eating as I was doing this low carb, no carb. And I realized doing low carb, no carb, I was probably eating 3,000 plus calories a day, right? Which is simply not a good idea. And so I promptly, after I saw that I was doing that, said, you know what, let me go back to what has always worked. Always, my entire life, what helped me lose that 212 pounds. Let me go back and just start tracking my calories, adding the carbs back in, tracking my calories, and guess what? The weight came right off. So this is the tried and true method. I know it sounds simple, not necessarily easy, so we're gonna keep talking about it here. Now, I'm not saying that the calorie is the only nutritional element that's important when it comes to health or fitness. If you have some very specific goals in terms of muscle mass or things like that, then yeah, thinking about things like your macros or your protein or stuff like that, that can become important. But if we're just talking about weight loss in general and we're talking about just generic health goals, the calorie is king, and it's very simple in that way. Now, I want you to think about your finances. Let's say you had a goal of, being in a good financial position or, taking a vacation or whatever. Would you just, start spending your money on absolutely whatever you want, going into the store, spending whatever you want, booking this vacation if you have, a goal to be financially stable? Of course not. Right? You would say, well, if this is my goal and I want to be financially stable, I can't just spend money haphazardly without having any indication as to what's in my account and do I have enough to be spending these things and still meet my goals. Now, the funny thing is, this makes a lot of sense to us when it comes to finances, but we don't usually carry this sense into the area of health because most of us go through our life eating things and actually having no idea what their caloric value is, and at the end of the day, how many calories we've ingested. And yet that seems fine to us. That is what's normal. I think that's actually pretty strange that we would make any decision in our life spending things, spending calories, spending energy, and not having any idea as to how much we're spending. Right? We would never give that advice to our children of, well, yeah, just go ahead and, spend how you want without actually knowing, what are you spending and keeping track. And I think it's the same thing with calories. It's just a matter of actually having wisdom in terms of, okay, I have an understanding of how many calories am I eating? What sort of caloric value does the food that I'm eating have so that I can make informed decisions? So this isn't just this doesn't need to be looked at as a laborious chore of being aware of your calories or counting calories. It's a matter of just being wise. If you want a certain outcome, right, you've got to be able to have a good picture of where you're at and the decisions that you're making so that you can know, are you actually getting yourself toward that outcome? And it's the same thing with health and with calories. So next week, you are going to begin counting your calories. It's that simple. We have to let go of the idea that there's this proverbial unicorn that we're going to find this diet out there or this answer out there that's going to give us the magic pill of weight loss. It's not out there. It is not out there. Sustainable, realistic weight loss is going to be found by being disciplined and by following through on understanding the caloric value of what it is that you're taking into your body. So next week, Go Week, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be tracking your calories every single day. And there are two things that you're going to need to do that successfully. First, you're gonna need a tool that will help you track your calories. Now, this can differ from person to person based on your personality type and what you like to do. So some people, they like to just keep a list on a piece of paper of what are they eating, what's the calories, or a note in their phone. Some people want to go ahead and buy a planner. There's many planners that you can buy online that will, allow you to write what you're eating and the calories. Many people, myself included, like to use online tools and apps where you can even just scan a barcode of a food item and it will automatically upload not just the calories, but all of the nutritional data for that food. And it will also keep a whole log for your whole day. I like doing that, but I know that not everyone, wants to use their phone for that. So whatever is important to you, you can, and works for you, you can do, but you need to find a tool that will help you track your calories. So this week, you need to decide what tool are you going to use. You have time this week to try out this app, to try out this method, and then go ahead and choose and identify what method you're going to use. Last week, you had some time where you were, counting your calories for those 3-day challenge. Did that work? What did you use? Do you want to go ahead and stick with that, or do you want to implement a new method? But write it down and decide it in your personal health plan. Now, the next thing you're going to need to do, the second thing in order to do this well, is you're going to need to set a calorie budget. Just like if you have a financial goal, you set a budget and you work within that. Same thing here. You have a health goal, you need to set a budget and work within that. So the first thing you need to do in order to set your budget for a health goal is you need to know how many calories are you currently eating. What's your starting point? There's a couple different places you can look to figure out how many calories are you eating right now. You can look at the number that came, ideally you'd look at the number that came from that 3-day challenge last week. And so you could kind of pick an average number of how many calories. So if you, ate 2,600 calories one day, 2,500 another day, 3,000 another day, maybe you're gonna go ahead and start at that 2650 calorie range. You would say that is my average. If you didn't do that for some reason, tisk, go ahead and add up how many calories did you eat today or yesterday, today, and tomorrow. You need to understand where are you starting out. So let's just say, we'll pick a random number. Let's just say that you started out eating 2,200 calories a day. You're gonna go ahead and set a budget that is just a little bit below that to start out. So if you were eating about 2,200 calories a day, I would go ahead and say your calorie budget as you're going on to Go Week is to start at 2,000 calories a day. You want to set a budget that's just a little bit below what you've been doing, because then you're going to stay at that level for 2 weeks, 1 month, however long you can continue to eat in that budgeted amount and you're seeing some sort of progress. Now, when you feel like you're getting to a plateau and you're not seeing a lot of change or progress in your body, you can adjust that calorie budget and drop it down from 2,000 calories to 1,900 or to 1,800 calories. Now, I can't give you an exact number to start with because everyone's body is different. Everyone's age, your body, how many calories you're ingesting right now, how many calories you're burning based on if you live a pretty sedentary lifestyle or if you're exercising a lot. So I can't give you an exact number because every person is different. And when one number for one person would be too low and another for another person would be too high. There are plenty of tools if you were to just go ahead and Google and just say, how many calories should I be eating per day to lose weight? You will find lots of calculators out there that will ask you your age, your height, your weight, the activity level that you do in a current day, and they will tell you, okay, to lose 1 pound a week, you should eat this many, or 2 pounds a week, this many, or if you wanted to gain weight, you should eat this many. Now again, our goals are not to lose pound specific, but it would just give you a ballpark figure if you're saying, I have absolutely no idea where to start. To give you an example, going back to that time frame right after I had had my second baby, when I figured out how many calories I was eating about 2,200 calories. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start with my budget at 1,900 calories. And then I stayed at that 1,900 budget for probably about a month. And then when I felt like, okay, I've adjusted well to this 1,900 budget, my body is adjusted, I'm ready, I went ahead and I went down to 1,700. Right? And then I think eventually I maybe went down to 1,600, and then I said, I'm good here. I think that this is where it's sustainable for me. I don't want to eat any less food. I am, pretty much at my minimum here. And so 1,600 is where I stayed. So you need to decide a calorie tool, and then you need to determine a calorie tracking tool, and then you need to determine a calorie budget. Write that down in your personal health plan. Again, you can do that based off of your number from the 3-day challenge or from what you might find on the internet. Now, doing this is a non-negotiable. Tracking your calories, it's a non-negotiable. Okay, if you want to be successful, you've got to do this. And it's funny because who hasn't heard of, the concept of tracking your calories? But I can tell you that while many people have heard it, and while many people have tried it, very, very, very few actually stick with it all the time. People will come to me and they will say, Tiffany, will you help me, in losing weight? And I don't know why I'm not losing weight. They'll even say to me, literally my least favorite thing to hear, which is, I think I'm not losing weight because I'm just not eating enough. I barely eat. And to that person, I'll say, okay, well, why don't you share with me your food log? One of two things happens. Either I end up looking at their food log and I see to the person who told me that they don't eat enough, that they actually are eating plenty, right? They are just, they're a little bit deceived. But when they're actually looking at what they're eating, they're saying, oh yeah, I am eating enough. Or maybe they're not eating, a lot of food in terms of quantity, but the amount of calories that are in the foods they're eating, even if they're only eating one meal a day, is exceeding their entire calorie budget for that day. But more regularly, what I find when that person shares with me their tool is I see that they're good, they're tracking for 3, 4, 5 days, but then crickets. They just don't keep on going. And the reason they don't keep on going is maybe they get busy and they feel like they're not able to track perfectly, and so they just let it completely go, or they don't like the truth of what they're seeing. They're like, they know that they had that lunch and that they ate all those chips and that they had the dessert, and they just don't want to put it in the calculator. They don't want to know. They don't want to be held accountable. So to me, this tool is like the number one thing you can do in terms of like a habit to successfully achieve your health goals, is tracking your calories. It is the way to keep you honest. And you'll find that pretty quickly. If you have never tried to track your calories before, or if you've never done it consistently, you will hit that point where you say, I just don't want to do this anymore because it keeps you honest. It is like the clearest picture. A lot of times people think that the scale is the clearest picture of how they're doing on their health journey, and it's not. It's your food log. Your food log is the clearest picture of how you're really doing on this journey, if you're really making progress. Now, here's the thing. You don't need to do this perfectly at all, right? Like maybe you go somewhere and you end up having, this salad and it's a club salad and you have no idea how many calories were in that club salad. If you're like me, you're like, I don't want to put it in my food log because I don't know the exact number of calories and I don't just want to guess, and I want it to be accurate and perfect. That's not always going to be the case, right? A lot of these food apps, or, if you're not using an app and you're just writing on paper, if you Google club salad, go ahead and take the average number of calories and put it in there. The point is not that everything is absolutely perfect and that you're getting it down to the exact calorie, but that you are being wise and that you are being accountable for what you're eating, and you're being realistic and you're putting it in front of yourself, because that's so valuable. So that if you get to the end of the week and you're like, you know what, or the end of the month, I'm not really making my goals, I'm not really making progress, you can go back and look and see exactly why. Which is why a lot of people don't put their information in there, because they don't want to be reminded as to why. They don't want that evidence to be there, but it's so important. Consider sharing your your log with a buddy, whether you do that electronically or on paper or just through a quick text photo. It will help keep you accountable. Now, are you ready for some good news about calorie tracking and calorie budgeting? Well, it's really good news, because the great thing about that being your nutritional plan is monitoring calories, is that you don't have to stop eating the foods that you like. You simply have to budget them in. On so many diets, they're telling you can never eat carbs again, you can never eat processed food, you can never, and all these foods get blacklisted as you can just never have these things again. And first of all, that sort of thing creates like a binge type behavior where when you think in your mind, I can never have pizza again, and then when you've gone for a while and then finally pizza's there and you're like, I'm just gonna have it, and you're inhaling, pizza. Not that I would know or anything. So it creates binge, worthy behavior, but also it's just not realistic, right? Like, you only get to live once. And if you like a certain type of food, then eat that certain type of food. But you need to do it with the same amount of wisdom that you do anything in life, right? Like, I really like to take vacations. I really like to, but that doesn't mean I take a vacation every single week. Right? Because then I wouldn't have any money or a job or, a million other things that I really want in life. I simply have to do it with wisdom. I have to do it with intention. And so you don't need to forsake any type of food or drink that you like. You just have to do it in a way that's wise and in a way that's controlled. And what that looks like is by monitoring your calories and tracking your calories, having that food log. Because basically what you're going to do is you're going to make allowance for it. So, for example, let's say that on Wednesday of this week you are going over to a friend's house and there's going to be a get together and everyone's going to have pizza, and you really want to have pizza. You're tired of sitting out and you want to have pizza. That's okay. You can do that. You simply need to budget for it. So that means that during the week you're not going to be, having pizza at another opportunity, or early in the morning, you're going to probably choose maybe a lower carb breakfast since pizza has a lot of carbs, and maybe you're going to go for a salad at lunch, a protein drink for a snack. And so that maybe you're reserving a lot of your carbs and fats and oils for that pizza. That's okay. As long as it fits within your calorie budget, let's say your calorie budget is 1900 calories, then it's okay. It just means if you're going to spend a lot at dinner, that you shouldn't spend a lot at breakfast and at lunch. Doesn't that just make so much sense? Yeah. So this is good because I think a lot of us have in our minds from past diets or, just media, like when we think of that, looking at a piece of cake at a birthday party, we're like, oh, that cake is bad. Like, that's a bad decision. And then if we eat it, all of a sudden we feel that we are bad, right? And it's just this like snowball effect where shame enters into the picture, and food and our nutritional choices should have nothing to do with how we feel about ourselves, right? Shame shouldn't be there or anything like that. Food should not be in control of you. Now, because you're no better a person if you eat a carrot stick over a Twinkie. If you're eating that carrot stick because you're afraid of if you ate a Twinkie, you'd be a bad person. Do you see like all of this crazy belief here? Food can have just as much control over a person who's making a healthy, good choice than it is a person who's choosing a Twinkie. Both people can have food be in an unhealthy, controlling position in their lives that it was never meant to have, right? We should be in control. We should be able to say, I either want to eat this food or I don't want to eat it. And if I'm going to eat it, I'm going to make sure that it fits in my calorie budget and that it helps support my goals. Now, let's talk about cheat days. Maybe you're thinking, okay, please tell me like cheat days are a thing with you because I love cheat days. Okay, so yeah, cheat days, they are a thing, but they are not a thing that's going to get you to your goals. Now, if you don't know what a cheat day is, let me tell you. Typically, when you hear a cheat day, it just means this is a day. Saturdays are my days, it's my cheat day, and I just throw caution to the wind and I eat whatever I want. Here's why that doesn't work. You can, like I said at the beginning of this video, you can eat more calories in a day that can just totally tank your entire week, right? So you don't need an entire day of cheating. Also, all of the days add up. If you took a cheat day every single week, that adds up to an entire half of a week of a month, right? That's actually a lot of time. That's not going to help get you anywhere you want to go very fast. So also, when you're following this, tracking your food, you're able to eat the foods that you like. So you don't need to have this binged feeling of like, I've never had this, I can't have it, and I'm just gonna have it on my cheat day. Because, for example, if you like muffins, you could have a muffin every single day if you want. You don't need to reserve it for a cheat day where you go and eat like a whole half dozen muffins. You can fit the muffin into your daily, calorie budget. So cheat days in and of themselves, no, that's not a healthy thing. It's not a good thing. It's not going to help you reach your goals, and it's not good for you mentally either. But here's what I am for. I am for what I would call relaxed meals. Now, a relaxed meal is simply a meal that you just have and you don't think about the calories. Okay? Now, first of all, let me tell you what it's not. It's not a day. It's not a relaxed day. It's not a relaxed weekend. It's a relaxed meal. It's one meal that you choose per week where you say, I'm going to eat this food, enjoy this meal, and I'm not gonna think about the calories. You're still gonna log it. You're still gonna either write it down that this was my relaxed meal, or you can log it. And I would still even, you could just log it as your relaxed meal, or if you want to, you could put the calories that you think are in it, and you just have decided, okay, this is the one time of day this is the one meal a week that I go over my calorie budget and I just let it go. Now, I do relaxed meals. And for me, here's why. For me, it's just helpful mentally that I know it helps me make the right choices throughout the week. When I know, for example, I tend to take my relaxed meals on Friday night with my family. We do movie night on Friday nights. We typically do, some pizza and a treat. And I know that meal, that relaxed meal is coming Friday evening. And so when I'm facing something on Tuesday midday and I'm thinking, oh, my kids are asking for ice cream and I really like ice cream, I'm making that choice of saying, I'm not going to have it because I am going to have it on Friday night. Or I know that if I do have it and it's going to cause me to exceed my calorie budget, that I can't participate on the relaxed meal on Friday evening. So it causes you to make just realistic choices. It's also helpful for me because it just helps me not feel like I am now forevermore, like never able to just have one meal where I just kind of not think about calories. So for me, it's very helpful. Now, it's not necessarily helpful for everyone else. For some people, it's really just better to say, hey, I'm gonna do this calorie budget thing. I'm going to stay within my budget. I know I can build the foods that I like and that I want into my budget, and so I'm gonna do that, and I'm not going to do a relaxed meal. You need to decide what's gonna work best for you, and you can make a decision now, and maybe you wanna change it later, and that's okay. So decide and write on your personal health plan, are you going to observe a weekly relaxed meal? If so, are you going to say that I'm going to always do it on Friday nights, pizza night, or are you going to simply be looking at your week at some point and say, okay, all right, Wednesday I'm going out with some friends for lunch, that's when I'm gonna have my relaxed meal. But make sure that you keep it to one meal a week, and when it's over, it's over. Now, that's what I say works nutritionally. You've got to track your calories, write them down, stay within a calorie budget, and incorporate one relaxed meal a week. That's it. Again, it's simple, but not necessarily easy to implement. And so I want to say a few other things that I think are important when it comes to nutrition. Now, because of marketing and things like that, a lot of times we feel like there's only a certain type of person with a certain type of life that's able to eat in a way that will support health goals or make them skinny. And if we feel like, if we're not like that person, then we are just doomed and destined to not be able to be successful. And I want to talk through some of those things because I'm living proof that those things are not real. And if those things have been in your head as some sort of barrier for you reaching your goals, then we're going to blow that barrier up and get you moving. So the first thing is, a lot of times people will say, I don't have a lot of extra money. I don't have money to buy these like organic groceries or to do a meal order service or, buy these expensive cuts of meat or whatever. And the truth is, when I lost 200 plus pounds, I was making the least amount of money that I have ever had access to in my life. I was eating lean cuisines that were like, $3 each. And I didn't have hardly any money. So you do not have to have tons of money to be able to eat in a way that's healthy for you. If you simply go onto, any sort of search engine and just say healthy, inexpensive meals, you are going to get a plethora of recipes that you can look through. So a rotisserie chicken can last me 2 to 4 days, and it's only $5. So if you're actually willing to put in the work and think and research, what can I eat cheaply, but that's still healthy? I promise you, there are plenty of options. The next thing I tend to hear is, well, I don't like to cook. I don't like to cook at all, and so I can't make healthy things because the things that are quick and fast, those are, not healthy for me. Let me tell you, I will never be able to sell, a cookbook because I don't really like cooking at all. And so I don't really cook hardly ever. Pretty much all of the meals that I eat and that I serve my family are things that are just like assembled or things that are just, heated up. So you do not have to be a cook or a foodie or anything like that at all. Again, you can definitely do this. For me, I have pretty much just taken the time to say, what are 10 meals that I like the way they taste? I know they calorically meet my budget. My family likes them. And I just get those 10 meals. I've learned how to make them. They're super easy. They're things like tacos or things like salads. And I just rotate through the same 10 meals so that I don't have to feel like I need to keep looking up new recipes or I need to learn how to cook these, creative things that I'm just not that interested in learning. The next thing I hear people say is, well, I just really love sweets. I'm too much of a foodie, to eat these healthy things. And again, you can have sweets. You can have, whatever you consider to be foodie type things. You just have to budget them in. You just have to use self-control and intentionality. And if you're not willing to, live with that sort of wisdom, then you're not really going to be able to meet any goals in life, let alone a health goal. So anyone can do this, no matter what you like, as long as you budget it in with wisdom. The last one, and probably the one that I hear the most, is I just don't have time. I don't have time to, get to the grocery store or to cook or to plan or to whatever. And this is where I would be really honest and say, I have 4 kids. 2 of them are toddlers. I homeschool my older 2. I go to the gym 6 days a week. I run a community workout program, and I run my own business. And yet I am able to figure out how to get nutritional food and make wise nutritional choices that support my goals. So anyone can do this. We make time for the things that are important to us. And that's just the truth. And once you get to the point where you realize that you can't reach your health goals without having your nutrition in line, then you either decide, I'm either going to pivot and make adjustments so that I can reach my nutritional goals, or I'm not. But a lack of time isn't really an option, because I promise you, and I've given you tools that you can make wise nutritional decisions with a very limited amount of time. So now we're going to talk about water. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but the benefits of water are widely known. And if you really want to know all of the benefits that water can have for you, then definitely take some time to do that research. But for the purposes of this intensive, drinking a lot of water is going to help you feel full. It's going to aid in your digestion, not to mention what it does for your nails, your skin, your hair, right? Water is very important. Now, you could read a lot about what is the right amount of water or the wrong amount of water, but here's what I say. I would recommend getting no less than 64 ounces, which is a half a gallon of water a day. For me, that's about 4 water bottles of what I have. And that's the amount of water that I feel good about. The easiest times for me to drink water are when I'm in the car or when I'm sitting down at a meal. At a meal, I'll just have that water bottle there and just say, okay, you're not gonna get up until you finish this water bottle. Water is like free diet supplements, right? It's free, and it's so helpful, and it's so healthy for you. And the more you drink, I promise, the better you're going to feel as you're making those good nutritional choices. The last thing I want to talk to you today about is making a meal plan. Now, it's not surprising that, you're more likely to make food choices that are going to align with your goals if you've decided in advance what you're going to be eating, right? It also leads to a lot less stress. I know a lot of people feel a lot of anxiety when they haven't planned in advance what they're going to eat. When they get to the restaurant, they open up the menu and they're like, I don't know what the right thing to eat is. And that's where you can learn to meal plan in advance. Take a look at the menu online before you go so that you can make an informed nutritional decision. So here's what I suggest. Choose a day of the week that fits best in your schedule. I would say for me, it's Sundays. And sit down and look at what's coming up in the week ahead of you and make a meal plan based on that. So let's say you know that you're going to, have a small group gathering and everyone's going to be bringing a meal. You can say, okay, I need to add to my grocery list that I'm going to be bringing a healthy alternative. Or there's this pizza event coming up and I want to participate in the pizza event, so that's going to be where my relaxed meal is. But for every other thing that you can control and that you are aware of, you should create a meal plan for it. And this can be as simple as, pretty much sitting down and saying, okay, for breakfast, I'm going to have, egg cups for 3 days, then I'm going to have oatmeal for 4 days, and then for lunches, I'm going to have these 2 different types of salads. For my snacks, this week, I'm going to do, turkey and string cheese and a protein drink. And then for dinners, I'm going to pick, 5 meals that I like, and I'm just going to keep rotating them out. Like I said, I choose about 10 meals that I like for dinners, and I just rotate them out. For me, I grocery shop every 2 weeks. I do this in a 2-week time frame because I really don't like to meal plan at all. And so I say, you know what, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to plan out 2 weeks worth. When I grocery shop, I'm going to grocery shop for 2 weeks worth of groceries, so that maybe I just have to do a quick, grocery run in between for something if I need it to be fresh. And then other than that, I'm set for those 2 weeks. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, but Tiffany, I want you to tell me exactly what to eat. I want you to give me a list. I want you to give me, the meal plan and all those things. And I'm not going to do that because you need to learn how to decide what's good for you based on what you like, right? You need to learn the caloric value of foods. Even if that just starts with, okay, looking at the food that you eat now and understanding how many calories is that, and figuring out how can you put together an entire day's nutrition in a way that's going to meet your caloric goals. It's that old, adage of like, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for eternity. I could give you a list, I could give you a meal plan, but the reality is you're not going to eat off that meal plan for the rest of your life. You're going to need to know and understand what is the caloric value of the foods that you like and how to fit that in the course of the day. So there's a learning curve to this, and that's okay. This shouldn't just be something that you just get overnight, handed to you, regurgitated to you. This is your life. This is your wisdom. These are your results. And so you've got to learn to understand the food that you're eating and to go ahead and learn to piece it together in a way that makes sense for your life. So how do you start? Well, like I said, you start just by looking at what's coming up and then going ahead and using the meal planning template that I've provided for you in your personal health plan. I've even provided for you a sample of what my meals look like in a week. And you're going to go ahead and write that out so that you can go to the grocery store, you can buy exactly what's needed, and you can, even if you haven't had time to add it into your, fitness, not your fitness tracker, but your calorie tracker right then and there, you can even use your meal plan to go back and add it in because you've got it all written out, you've got it all planned out. Now, the reason that you're not in Go Week right now is because you need the time to plan and prepare and figure out, well, how many calories are in these things so that you can make sure you're not going over your calorie budget. I would really suggest in these early weeks, not trying to do 5 different types of breakfast and 5 different types of lunch. Go ahead and just pick 1 or 2 breakfast ideas, 1 or 2 lunch ideas for the week that fit in your calorie budget, and do those. And then you can slowly add in new breakfast options, new meal options, new dinner options as you begin to feel comfortable. There's going to be so many new things to this, implementing your personal health plan. Just find a very few options that'll work and stick with those, and you will be okay. Now, I know that's a lot of information, but I wanted to give you everything on nutrition in the same day. Don't begin to fill in your meal plan yet. Just go ahead and wait and start to think about what is important to you nutritionally. Fill out all of those questions that we've talked through today. And then you're going to answer, which nutritional habits will I commit to incorporating into my personal health plan? Is it that you're going to do all of your food prep on one day? Some people, that really works. They make all of their lunches, they put them in individual containers. Great. Some people say, well, I'm just going to have this plan here, or I'm going to schedule my, grocery order pickup on this day. What is that going to look like for you? Are you going to pre-make your snacks, right? What are you going to do about water? What are you going to do about breakfast? How many times a week do you want to eat out? All of these things that you have heard from me today, think about how you're going to incorporate them into your life, because that's what matters. It doesn't matter what's worked for me. It matters what the principles that I'm telling you have worked for me and how can you incorporate those into your life. So take the time today to go through your personal health plan, the nutrition component, think through these things. And this is the necessary work that, like I said, so many people, this is the component that trips them up, is because they don't commit to saying, I'm going to understand calories, I'm going to understand what I'm eating, I'm going to track it, I'm going to be honest with myself. This is the thing that normally trips them up. So commit to this. Again, not committing to do it perfectly, but committing to saying, I want to do this right. I want to do this with wisdom. I want to do this holistically, and I'm going to do this well. I believe that you are well on your way to setting yourself up for success for week 4. So take some time, think about that nutrition, plan, prepare, because you are going to do great on week 4. Go Week next week.